everybody, and welcome back to the book club. Today, I have the honor of sitting down with Trey Tucker. And Trey, if you could just introduce yourself a little bit, because I don't want to do you any injustices by leaving anything off. I know you're a man of many talents, a man who's in many projects, so I don't want to do any injustices, like I said, and I'll hand that over to you.
There's nothing you couldn't say about me that many people have already said badly about me before. Basically, I'm just a dummy, and I'm also happen to be a therapist and some teaching, some coaching, and some videos here and there. So, yeah, I'm addicted to variety. So, I don't really know who or what I am, depending on what the hour of the day is.
Well, look, if there's a guy who represents the term Renaissance man, it's Trey Tucker, and I had to make sure to get as much time as I could with them. This will be a little bit of a shorter episode because we both got a lot to do, but definitely wanted to sit down and talk to you. It's been years. I don't know if you've seen me with all this in person.
It wasn't quite that thick in the middle right there. I saw you. I feel like maybe about a year ago in the weight room, but
Mm,
it's you definitely had not grown out the good old goatee quite
right,
that far. It's
right.
looking good, man. I like it.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Just for context, in high school, we went. I went to an all boys school, and Trey was my ninth grade English teacher, and we weren't allowed to have facial hair or anything. So we we all, after we graduate, I feel like it's customary to just see where your facial hair game can go
Oh
since
yeah, you
since
got
you're
to take advantage of the freedom.
for sure, for sure. So I want to get right into it. I know we could catch up for hours, and we have to when we're both in the same country again. But one question I got to get off the table from the jump. As you know, you're on the book club. Uh, team audiobook, team ebook, or team hard copy? Which one?
Whew. Man, that's a great question. I can easily tell you that ebooks are not my thing.
Okay.
for for whatever reason, when they're on a screen, I just can't get into it as much. It's convenient because I can bring it wherever I want, but
Right.
it doesn't. It only gets to my head. It never gets to my heart when it's on an ebook.
Mm,
And then I found some cool research on this. I don't know how long ago it was, but it shows that the information on a physical page actually absorbs better and gets remembered better by your brain as opposed to if it's on an ebook screen. I can't
right.
fully explain why that is, but there's something about the ink on a page that your brain just sticks it better.
Okay.
So I will say this: the one I enjoy a physical book the most,
Mm-hmm.
but with my crazy schedule, and I'm sure everybody's crazy schedule, I have found myself going more often to audiobooks. And
Okay.
you know, the ultimate for me is to read it and listen to it at the same time, because then I got a ton of parts of my brain working at one thing. But yeah, if I have just a day to myself, I'm gonna be reading the book physically and then ideally listen to it as well. But typically, it's while I'm driving or while I'm working out that I'm just listening to stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree with you. I agree with you. If I've been making an effort to really set aside time and sit down with a physical copy of a book and just read, because I feel like it's almost a sort of meditation. You think about it, you're sitting and looking at a collection of letters, but you're in a different world. Whether you're reading fiction or nonfiction, you get transported to the author's perspective. So uh,
Yes.
I definitely make an effort to just sit down and read. But as you know, I mean, being on the road or whatever, me as a basketball player, sometimes you're on the bus and it's dark, and the only option is an audiobook. So definitely rather go audiobook than no book. But I'm also an outspoken advocate for team hard copy, and I'm glad there's some science to back it.
Yes, absolutely.
That,
Heck yeah.
that's encouraging.
Stay, stay old school, man. It's good for the brain.
Yes, yes, sir. So another question is what role, and this is interesting because you're actually an English teacher. What role does and what value do you put on reading in itself, in life in general, or just for you personally?
Oh man. So for your own peace, your own inner peace, reading is just unparalleled. You can't find anything that's going to do the exact same thing that reading is going to do. Of course, there's other ways to still your body, but reading it's in a category of its own because there's no other activity where just like you said, you can sit down, get away from distractions and transport yourself into another world, but you also your brain has the chance to visually design what that other world actually looks like. You know, the words on the page are one thing, but your brain gets the chance to flex its imagination muscles and
Yeah,
really create this world that it probably looks how the author intended it for you to look as a reader, but maybe it looks something totally different. So
right.
just for your inner peace alone, that's a huge benefit. And there's tons of other benefits we can get into as well.
Man, I love that. I love that. That's something I myself, that's one of the key reasons why I set that time aside because as an athlete, and you're a coach, you need that muscle. You
Yeah.
can't just train by yourself with no imaginative factor. So you gotta train that muscle and be able to visualize outcomes, and that's just in life in general as well.
Yeah, yeah. And you talk about something like anxiety.
Mm,
Anxiety is using your imagination, but it's really hijacking your imagination towards something that just works against you. Because we're always imagining what might happen in the future and how badly it might turn out. And 99.9% of the time, it doesn't turn out that way.
mm.
But yet, we've just trained our imagination to go that direction so often. But books are a great way to help us to expand our imagination into an area, like you said, training that muscle in ways that really benefit us.
Man, that's an interesting perspective. That anxiety is your imagination being hijacked. I 100% agree. That's a great way to put it. So moving on, I told you this off camera as well. I'm really dying to know which book you've chosen because I know you've taught several books, and really, teaching is the last part of learning. So teaching a book, you really delve into it deeper than the average person. So could you share with us what book it is that you have for us today? And if it isn't the book that you're currently reading, would you let us know what you're reading right now?
Oh man, good one. Yeah, the book we're going to talk about is called Water from My Heart
Okay.
by an author named Charles Martin, and I've loved that one for years. So we can get as deep into that as you want. The
Mm.
book I'm currently reading, I have this bad habit of going through about two or three at a time. So, what the main one that I'm spending the bulk of my time on right now is called The $1 Trillion Coach.
Okay.
It's about an executive coach who used to be a football coach. His name is Bill Campbell, and he took the lessons that he learned as a football coach and learned how to apply them in the executive world of
Mm.
really how to help people reach their full potential in their business career.
Oh yeah, I've never heard of that one. I've never heard of that one. That's one of the reasons I love doing this is just you get exposed to all types of different materials and books. So I'm definitely
Yeah.
gonna look in to both of these and add it to my to read list, which is already too long. But I,
Yeah.
I have an Audible subscription, so worst case I can kind of work through them in that way.
Heck yeah. By the way, you're living proof for people that are watching this that don't know you. You're living proof of the benefits of reading because for as long as I've known you, you've had that curiosity, that hunger for learning through books. And so even as a ninth grader, you were far and away ahead of your peers.
Mm.
And now, just in the years subsequent to that, the more reading you've stacked on top of it, it's showing just how much you're growing. And not that all of life is a competition, but there's a lot of competition within life, and you are definitely beating the people your age and even older because of your love of reading.
Man, I'm getting chills. I'm getting chills, man. No, that means a lot. You've definitely been a mentor to me in a lot of ways, whether you know it or not. And yeah, that I really appreciate that. always encouraging to see the fruits of your labor. But also just me as a as an author personally as well, seeing that there are other people excited about reading and seeing the benefits of reading in my own life and being able to share those and see that those are showing up means a lot. Means a lot.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, there's all this talk these days about hustle culture and get ahead,
Hmm.
and all that's great, but most of them don't ever talk about the fact that reading is probably the biggest way to separate yourself from the pack because so few people are doing it anymore. That's a great way to have a competitive advantage.
No, I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. And it's kind of counterintuitive because, especially like you said, with today's day and age and hustle culture and just this alpha male idea and go getter,
Yeah.
sitting back and reading, you would think it would be low on the list because you're not really doing anything but flipping pages. But
Mhm.
that inner world and that imagination is the key to everything. I'm starting to learn.
Absolutely. And you're right. It is kind of upside down and backwards compared to what the world says you need to be doing to get ahead.
Hmm.
Because it does, from the outside, it does look boring because you're not doing a lot of physical movement. But man, that's the key.
Right.
Less physical movement helps the brain a lot of times. I'm not, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying anything about exercise, but
Yeah.
we're just always on the move so much that really getting slowed down and letting your brain rest a little bit, or at least keyed in on one thing, it's a massive, massive, massive advantage.
No, absolutely, and it's funny that you bring that up. We just spoke about that on the last episode. So if you haven't tuned into that, great conversation about exactly this topic. Just taking a moment to slow down. I think that'll be a recurring theme on this show. Just because you have to do that in order to engage with the book. You have to slow down and just stop everything.
Yep.
So okay, well, I I don't want to go too much into summarizing, but we need a little bit of a summary and kind of an idea of what this book is, and then
Yeah.
we can hop right into the themes that either related to your personal life or you feel like relate to the state of the world in general.
Sure. Yeah. So starting off, the author, who's Charles Martin, he and I are both from Jacksonville, Florida.
Oh,
So
really?
I was born there first, lived the first 7 years of my life there. So at heart, I'm a beach bum. And so many of Charles's books have the beach as at least one of the settings that the story either
Okay.
starts or ends up in. And same thing with this one. I haven't ever met him personally, but my uncle is friends with him, and as I've read his other books, which I've never read a bad one of his books, I can see that his personality shows up in a lot of the different main characters that he writes. They're all, of course, vastly different main characters, but
Mhm.
I can see some common themes in the main ones. And I'm thinking it's got to be some of his own personality or maybe his own struggles, which
Mhm.
will make more sense in a second. But so, yeah, the gist of the book is there's this character named Charlie, ironically, since the author's name is Charles, but the character, he is a genius poker player, the type of kid in high school that didn't have to work hard at all and still got great grades.
Mhm.
But he was also grew up essentially an orphan. His dad died when he was young. His mom had to basically just work, and Charlie had to fend for himself. So grew up growing up like that on the beach of Jacksonville. Then he ends up as a drug runner, and I'm skipping some parts that I'm skipping the spoilers, but he ends up as a drug runner, and stuff inevitably goes wrong after a good long, probably 10-year run of like living quote unquote the good life.
Mhm.
But eventually, you got to pay the piper, and
Absolutely.
it goes that direction. So the rest of the story is essentially this journey of his own inner world, figuring out how did I get so broken on the inside, and then also realizing how much brokenness he has caused on the outside world to the people around him, to the places around him. And so the whole story becomes this mission to fix what he's messed up on the outside, and then also really to find restoration and really it's essentially a story of finding forgiveness in himself,
Mm,
an inner healing journey as well.
mm.
But tons of action as well, because of, being a drug runner is going to entail a bunch of action. So for me as an adrenaline junkie, I need that as part of the story. I got to have some action that helps me get to the more heart of the matter issues as well.
Oh yeah, man. Okay, well you've done a good job of hooking me on this, man. So man, okay, I'm definitely gonna have to check this one out.
Oh
Definitely
yeah, it's good. You
add it
know,
to my fiction.
fiction. Go ahead.
No, I just need to add it to my fiction list. That's all. That's all I was saying.
Yeah, fiction books sometimes get overlooked by the high achievers in the world, but there's another, back to the research thing. The research shows your brain thrives more if you're reading a different type of genre at least every now and then. So, if somebody's hung up on nonfiction all the time,
Hmm.
nothing wrong with that, but your brain is basically going to essentially shrink. I'm oversimplifying it. So when you add other genres like fiction to it, your brain starts to grow and expand more. So yeah,
Yeah.
I'm a big proponent of fiction. I don't read it enough myself, but
Mm.
when I find a story like this, it rejuvenates my love for it.
Oh yeah, yeah. For me, I really grew up on the opposite end of the spectrum. So for me, often I need in nonfiction, I need some imagery. I need some, creative language to keep me engaged. I still notice it at certain times where there are things that the concept interests me, but sometimes the way it's presented loses me because I'm a really visual guy and a writer myself. So I
Yeah,
need that kind of language that's almost a fiction style of writing, using kind of prose writing styles to communicate the nonfiction message. So for me, like anecdotes are really perfect. If there's some kind of story I can get into, I'm gonna be hooked.
yeah, that's the way we're designed. Information really only gets to our brain, but if we hear a story that has the information wrapped up in it, that's what hits us in the heart.
Hmm. No, that's what makes it memorable. That's why I love this concept as well because just naturally these different stories from people's lives come out talking about a different story. So along that same note, how did this book really connect with you on a personal level outside of obviously the author being from Jacksonville and the beach? Like what themes really connected with you?
Yeah, the theme ultimately of realizing how jacked up I am.
Mm,
I can do a pretty good job of presenting like, yeah, everything's fine, or like, "Oh, I don't have much wrong with me, so to speak, just to, with this fear of other people's opinions. But
mm,
if I'm really honest with myself, I'm pretty messed up. And if you put me in a world where there's no rules, I got a lot of selfishness and
mm,
just stuff I try to keep hidden. And so
mm,
this book this book takes a guy who actually ends up being forced to look at that ugly part of
mm.
himself. And man, I think uh, if maybe all of us maybe chose the humble route, we could probably grow a little more once we get the courage to confront some of our junk.
Definitely, definitely. And I've realized, you know, especially being on my own now for the fourth year since high
Mhm.
school, just how little pride is worth. To me, it's worthless
Yeah.
at this point. These things that we talk about sometimes, principle and just honor and those things. Yeah, I feel like there's no shame in saying I'm not perfect. This is like you just said. I'm jacked up. We're all jacked up in some way. I know some people listening heard that like jacked up. Like, man, what's this guy's deal? Like, what's wrong with him? He must have some real dirt because I'm not going around on air saying I'm jacked up. But the truth is, we all are. We all are, and I feel like for good people who have stayed out of trouble, you know, in school you get the gold star and you're recognized as, one of the good kids, and you kind of fall into this false reality like maybe I am perfect. And
Hmm.
that's where it's really dangerous, because you you lose that self-awareness that's required to grow, and you kind of get stuck in this cycle of, well, now you start pointing the finger. You feel like you're the victim when things go wrong, and you don't feel like you're playing any role in it. And
Yeah.
that's so you bringing that up, that was just really interesting, because that's something I've had to grow in personally, because I always, for the most part, none of us are perfect, like I said, but for the most part, I try to, lead a moral life, and stick to the rules of whatever construct I was in. So if something went wrong, I started kind of looking at the construct, because in my mind, I'm following all the rules. So nothing bad should be happening to me because I'm doing everything right. But once you really kind of take some time, and I feel like it takes, at least in my case, it took a little bit of the same thing going wrong over and over again, and seeing the
Mhm.
same things show up in your life. I, you know, I had stuff that was happening in high school, and I'm like, oh man, this stuff, this the school, the school's messed up. And I come to Germany, completely different country, different people, different age group of people around me. I went from being one of the older guys around in my friend group to being the absolute youngest guy,
Mm.
starting to play professional basketball at 18 years old. And funnily enough, same themes. It was like the same people were showing up with a different face.
Uh-huh.
This is my fifth city in 4 years, and I've seen
Wow.
stuff just show up, regardless of where I am in the States, in these different cities. It's like the same person with a different face. And so at some point, you have to ask yourself the question, is it me? Is it me? And that's kind of the start of it. So I don't want to step on your toes anymore, but just kind of wanted to share my experience with that topic.
Oh, it's perfect what you said, because here's the reality is that wherever we go, there we are.
Mm,
Like you just said, this is your fifth city in 4 years, and same themes keep happening. So like, and first of all, let me say, I totally get it. Nobody looks forward to or has fun examining the negative parts of themselves. So it is rough. I would rather have my toenails pulled out. So but like you said, there's the tendency to think, well, the stuff that's not going right, it's just because of these other people, or this place that I'm at, or this job that I'm in, or this person that I'm dating or married to.
mm,
And there's parts of that are true. Everybody is jacked up. So yes, there are things that other people have to work on.
mm,
However, wherever I go, whatever new environment I put myself, or whatever new job I go into, I'm bringing all of me to that. I'm bringing all the good parts and the junked up parts. So, yeah, at some point, I hope we all have that aha moment of, oh yeah, yeah, it's partly other people, but a big part of it is me. And like I say, it's uncomfortable, and some people sadly never get there. Some people stay in the victim mentality. And as a therapist, that's the toughest situation for me, is when a client just won't own anything.
mm,
I'll even take like 1% of it. But especially the even sadder part is when there's a couple who comes in for marriage counseling, and either one or both of them is just stuck in their corner saying no, it's him, or no, it's her,
mm,
and that neither one of them want to say, oh yeah, maybe part of this is me. And if one of them or both of them just won't own their own stuff, or at least a part of their own stuff, there's really no progress that can be made, and it's heartbreaking.
mm. Why is it, do you think, because you've had endless conversations like this with people from all different walks of life, why is it that you think it's so difficult for us to take responsibility?
Because it hurts and it's scary.
Mm,
So we're designed at a core level to avoid things like pain
mhm,
and run away when there's fear. Like just from a physical level, if you're walking through the woods and it's dark
mhm,
and you hear something off in the bushes somewhere, but you can't see what it is, your body is going to get scared. It's how anxiety actually helps us, because that noise might be a bear,
Mm,
and if it is, you better run. So fear causes us to run from discomfort,
mm,
and then of course when there's pain, when there's physical pain, I'm going to recoil from that.
mm,
But where we make the mistake is when we have our own internal junk, the fear and the pain show up again, but this time it's not the physical fear and the pain that we should be running from. It's the emotional pain that we need to stick with.
mm.
So I tell people it's just like if you're doing a set of back squats. Back squats are incredibly uncomfortable. Actually, front squats are what's your least favorite lift, by the way?
Whew, man.
Putting you on the spot. I'll come back to you. But for me, it's front squat because
Mm,
it burns. My lungs are constricted. The bar is up against my throat. I can't breathe. And so it's horrible. But I know that if I actually go through that, then I'm going to get some benefit. But
yeah.
it's a whole lot harder to convince myself I'm going to go through the pain and the discomfort of owning my junk and working on my junk, because
Mm,
that's a whole different level of pain and fear, because I don't want to feel the discomfort. What if I can't change? What if it goes wrong? What if the other person doesn't change? Like, all these scenarios happen. So in the moment, it's easier to just pull away and say, no, it's not me.
oh yeah. Yeah. No, I'm gonna have to join the front squat battle. I've always been pretty good at front squats, but man, that whew, those sets of 10,
Yeah. A little PTSD action, don't you?
man, seriously, that took me right back to the days when I was first starting them. And I'm like, man, why not just put it on my back? No, yeah, hey, that's a beast. That's a beast of an exercise. I will say that, especially this throat aspect of it, because
Absolutely.
you want to bend forward, but there's nothing you can do. You have to stay right there where it's uncomfortable. So
That's it. That's it.
there.
But here's the thing, typically we don't change until the pain of our current choices outweighs the pleasure of our current choices.
Mm,
So to bring it back to the book, this guy, he was running drugs and living the good life. He lived on an island. He had his own boat. He was
mm,
making just tons of cash. So he had no real motivation to change because
right.
the pleasure was outweighing the pain. But just like in life, it's a sunny day for a while. It's a sunny season of life. So yeah, why would I purposely walk into something like working on myself and my weaknesses, because life's good.
Mm,
So a lot of times we have to hit either real rock bottom or at least a version of rock bottom before we really understand, like, oh yeah, my choices, even though they haven't affected me up until now, it's this idea of, man, you reap what you sow eventually, and usually you reap more than what you sow later than what you sowed.
yeah. Nah. Yeah. Mm, that's that's really interesting to think about because I feel like without any kind of hardship, there's no, like you said, there's no reason to reevaluate yourself and what you could be doing better. You just feel like you can just kick back. But do you think that if you experience hardship early or just at any point that afterwards, once you, so say you start at the bottom or you're up here, you come down, hit rock bottom, and then you work your way back up, is it then easier to reevaluate, or do you feel like we kind of lose that regardless of what our previous experiences are?
What I found is our natural drift as humans is to drift toward things like blame,
Mm,
laziness, lack of responsibility. Because that's just a part of us, that's this magnet that pulls us in that direction.
mm,
But to your point, if you have an experience early on enough in life that shows you the lesson, the value of evaluating yourself, of taking a good look in the mirror, then you can be. Most people end up being more intentional about doing that regularly.
mm,
So once stuff crashes, then they realize, well, I don't want that to happen again. So what can I put regularly in my life that's going to keep me on the path? So I know that I have this drift toward ignoring the negatives and being lazy. So who and what can I put in my life to remind me to look in the mirror, remind me to keep growing? And we still are going to mess up, but typically something bad happening to us or because of us in the past, that does tend to keep us more disciplined in the future. It doesn't always work out that way, but it tends to.
That's interesting that you also said who in my life. What role does the the people in Charlie's life and his surroundings play in the story? How does that lead him astray at first and then maybe back to where he needs to be?
Yeah, yeah, and that's one of my favorite parts of the story, the effect that the people have around him.
Mm,
And early in the story, it's the typical stuff. It's people who are either enabling him or are basically driving him into more selfishness because of their selfishness.
mm,
So I don't want to give too much of it away, but
right.
uh, no no true positive influences. And he purposely pulls himself away from attachments to people that might play a positive role for him, or might call him out on his junk.
Mm,
You know, that's our tendency as well. So then, second half of the story, because of his own mistakes, I would call them, you know, that's an interesting thing. Mistakes is like, oh no, I spilled my drink, but a bad decision,
right.
like then I have to own that. Like that's another way I can call it a mistake and kind of separate myself from it. But if I make a bad decision that messes somebody else up,
Yeah.
then that's a harder thing to admit. So with his bad decisions, those same people that he ends up hurting become the people that help him grow and refine.
Mm, mm. Okay, so shifting the lens to you a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
where what at what points in your life, you know, can you point to on both spectrums where you
Mm-hmm.
say, okay, in this time of my life, the people around me really brought me down, and I could really feel that I was a product of my environment. And then on the flip side, you know, today, what who can you kind of point out or shout out that is your support group or that keeps you on the right path of being the person you want to be?
Yeah, yeah. I've been so blessed to have had amazing people around me my whole life.
Mm,
Now, I haven't always made myself the real me available to them my whole life, but they've always been around. They've been available. So
mm,
um, I will say probably the college years for me were the ones where I just went with the crowd and did what my fraternity brothers were doing.
mm,
They never there was never a peer pressure kind of thing. It was
right.
just I wanted to fit in, and I really didn't have a I don't know, a set of foundations or a worldview to
Mm,
fall back on. And really, it was the hopes of fixing my own insecurities. So I just followed that path and followed what they were doing, and you know, again, it was on me. But also, I didn't really intentionally seek out people that um, I don't know that were going to slap me around a little bit and rattle my cage,
mm,
because I knew if I was around those people, then I would have to be confronted with with that friction, and I
mm,
frankly didn't want that inconvenience. But now now I have, I would say, six or seven other men, what I call fellow warriors, that
mm.
we're trying to live the same way, we're trying to walk in the same direction, and I tell them at least twice a year, hey, remember, whatever you see in me that I need to be looking at, you got to tell me, because
Mm,
I've got blind spots,
mhm.
and it's going to hurt to hear that I've got to work on something, but I need you to tell me that, because if you don't, then I don't know who else will. I don't know who cares enough about me to tell me the hard truth. So, yeah, there's people here at work. There's people that live in other cities, but you know, my buddy Joel Kaufman calls it a board of directors,
Oh
you know,
yeah.
where he purposely has people in his life where he's regularly staying in touch with, and they know his day to day thinking. It's not just a once every few months kind of thing, and so that they can notice things, and they've got the full freedom to speak into that. And that's I love that concept, because that's what I use as well. Just put different language to it.
Yeah, I think it's great that you bring that up, that board of directors feel to it, because I feel like in today's day and age, when we hear support system and you know the terms along those lines, we automatically think of a shoulder to lean on, you know, someone to hug, and that's part of it. You know, if we all need a hug sometimes, you know, we all need a shoulder that we can lean on, that we can cry on, and just spill our heart out to. But I think, and I really realized this last year, being the youngest player on the oldest team in my league.
Oh gosh.
Sometimes you need, and really at all times, you need accountability more than anything. You need someone to say, hey, look, I love you. I
Mm-hmm.
want to see you win. If you want to get to where you want to get to, you can't do what you're doing right now.
Yeah.
And someone who's comfortable enough with you and knows enough to recognize those things and speak to you about them, and not be shy about it either. Not passive aggressively beat around the bush like, yeah, low key, you're kind of, no. It needs to be, hey, look, man, you got to stop that.
Exactly. And like you said, that the best way to do it is to play into or bring back up what the person has said they value the most.
Mm,
Like the people were telling you, look, this is what you say you want, where you say you want to go. So if you keep doing this thing, you ain't gonna get to where you say you want to be.
right. No, 100%. 100%. Speaking about accountability, I know you're a man of faith, and that's, we're gonna have to sit down and do a part two to this for sure.
Absolutely. I'm down, man. This is fun. Could do this for about 6 hours. I don't know if anybody else would want to listen, but it'd be fun for us.
No, I'm telling you, I'm loving it. So I know your journey with your faith is a unique one, as all of ours are. Uh, and I just, I wanted to know what role your faith and religion plays in that accountability, and how God works into your board of directors. If I,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. It's so for me, I follow Jesus, and he has given me the grace, the redemption that I realized that I needed. When I first started recognizing the junk in me,
mm,
and initially I tried to fix it myself, and I made some progress, but then you hit this wall and you realize like, oh yeah, it's me trying to be a better me. I need something bigger. So, uh, you know, because of Jesus, He can work on the inside. He worked on the inside of me to basically make me new from the inside.
mm,
And then the behaviors that I was trying to change, they got a lot easier to change. Instead of me just trying to sort of arm wrestle against myself,
mm,
He gave me the inside transformation that then the behaviors, kind of the fruit, it just started to happen, not necessarily without me trying, but it was, let's put it this way, there was a different engine pushing that to happen. So now, as far as the whole board of directors thing, yeah, it is not just a daily battle, but a moment by moment battle where who is the director of my board, who is my director.
right,
So man, my tendency is I want to call the shots. I want to run my life. I want to be my own God. That's just in me.
yeah,
And what I've realized is I don't know everything. I don't know the future. I don't know a ton about the past. So if I can remember that He does know all that, and He also wants the best for me, then I can let Him just be who He actually is, and not pretend that I can somehow be in control,
mm,
because control is typically just a myth. But
yeah,
it's so hard to let Him be the director in any given moment. But that's the walk.
man, it is, and the crazy thing is, and I feel like as an athlete, you really experience this as well when you kind of get in the zone. And obviously, you can get in the zone doing anything, get into a flow state. But the moments when you're not in control and it feels like, an out of body experience, those are the ones that you cherish the most, because it feels like, wow, I did not know I was capable of doing this. So
Right.
that's kind of the paradox there, that we all, like you said, it's very difficult to let go of it, but when you do, it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, yeah, that flow state. That's a cool parallel. I hadn't thought of that one before.
Yeah, for sure. Uh, Another book that I think you would really like. I told you about the Stillness is the Key that we talked about on the last episode,
Mm-hmm.
with my former teammate Kelvin Martin. But another one, and it's actually the book I'm reading right now, is The Power of Positive Thinking. And you might have already read it, I'm not sure. But if you have,
I don't think I have.
The
I don't think
Power
I
of
have.
Positive Thinking, I believe it's Norman Vincent Peale.
Oh yeah, now that's a classic. I've never gotten to that one, but I feel like I've heard it taught in so many other books and videos and whatnot. I feel like I've read it.
Yeah, right, exactly. No, I have as well, just different content that I've looked into, but I had it. I just I was packing to come here to Germany this summer and was looking around the house and it just caught my eye.
Mm.
No cover or anything. It was like the cover was gone, and I just saw the on the binding the title, and I was like, okay, let me throw it in the suitcase. And it had been in my suitcase for months, and I was cleaning my room up. Saw the suitcase, opened it up to see if it was empty so I could put it away. The book was in there, and I said, okay, it's time now to read it. I felt like the book was calling me, and I'm glad
Yeah.
I'm glad I did. It's been eye opening in many ways.
Oh, I'm sure. And to tie two concepts together, the idea of people who love you enough to tell you the truth, and the idea of positive thinking.
Hmm.
Probably about, I don't know, 5 years or so ago, I was talking to a buddy of mine. I really wasn't even aware of what I was saying. It was just kind of small talk.
Mm.
And he interrupted me. He goes, dude, you are so freaking negative.
Mm.
And I said, what?
Oh,
I mean, it's like he punched me in the face, but it caused me to really do some soul searching and really look at some uncomfortable parts of my thinking. And he was right. A lot of the words that came out of my mouth at that point were negative. And I bet now if I took some inventory, I bet there's too much negative that's in my brain and therefore coming out of my mouth.
man, that's so interesting because it was a similar conversation that I had with my teammates last year, and I'd never been labeled as negative. In fact, the opposite, that I'm too optimistic, that I'm, dream too big, and so they're like, man, yeah, no, you got to stop that. And I'm like, what do you mean? And I was not even knowing it. I'm trying to, kind of be a part of the group, like you said. It's a lot of older guys, so I'm making certain jokes, trying to make light of my situation. I wasn't getting the minutes that I felt like, or my teammates felt like I deserved, and making certain jokes that they sat down with me and said, look, that's not helping your situation. We all know what the situation is, you know, but you speaking about it and joking about it is just kind of cementing you in it.
Yep.
And the only way out is first in the mind. Maybe this season is a wash as far as you know getting what you deserve, but this season will end at some point. You're going to sign a new contract somewhere else at some point. So how are you preparing your mind right now for what's to come? And that really stuck with me. And from that point on, it was like an instant shift because, like in your situation, someone just really came out and just called me out and said, "Hey, look, this is what it is."
Yeah. Oh, it's so powerful, because so many times when we're complaining about a situation, like with playing time, for example,
Mhm.
that is our brain's way of trying to do something about it.
Right.
It logically doesn't make sense because we don't, obviously we know complaining won't really actually change it, but our brain wants us to take some sort of action, so it uses complaining as a way to somehow pacify that. But what it does, like you said, is it just keeps you stuck.
Mm.
What we've got to do we got the faster we accept our reality, the quicker we can do something about it. But if I'm stuck in this narrative of poor me and why aren't they doing this and why aren't they doing that, then I'm literally staying stuck, cemented in it, like you said. But if I just realize, all right, this is reality, so now what? Then I've at least got something I can do.
Man, that's it. That's it. And that's something I didn't even realize. But your brain is always, like you said, trying to find a way out of whatever is going on, or trying to find the solution to whatever issue or obstacle is in your way. So that's a great way of putting it. But I do want to be respectful of your time. Uh, if you guys cannot get enough of Trey Tucker, you have an Instagram. Do you want to plug it?
Yeah, if you go to Rugged Counseling, I'm on Instagram, I'm on TikTok, YouTube. There's ruggedcounseling.com. So if you want this ugly face anymore, I apologize, but they're the ways you can find me.
All those links will be in the description. Can you remind the viewers of the titles of both of the books you mentioned as well? Because links to purchase those will also be in the description. Definitely check them out. I'm that's gonna be the first thing I'm gonna do is check both of them out and look into them. Probably on Audible. I got some credits left, and maybe I get the hard copy and do like you said and listen and read at the same time. I haven't done that in a while.
Yeah, there you go. So yeah, those two titles again are Water from My Heart by Charles Martin and The $1 Trillion Coach. I can't honestly, it's about a guy named Bill Campbell, but I can't remember who actually wrote the book. But
Okay.
just look up Bill Campbell book and that'll be it.
Yeah, yeah. So man, now like I said, my list is expanded. I'm glad we got to connect on this. I know you're really busy, like I said, a Renaissance man. So I'm really grateful and thankful that we were able to catch up here on this podcast and hope to sit down again soon.
Me too, Ant. You're a beast. Let's do it again. I look forward to it.